The silence behind the door, it was just after 9 at night when Arav, a quiet 12-year-old boy with thoughtful eyes and a gentle walk, padded barefoot down the long hallway of their Palo Alto home. He had gotten out of bed not because he couldn't sleep, but because something didn't feel right. There was a stillness in the air that didn't belong. Not the peaceful kind, but the heavy kind. Like something had gone missing, or someone was hiding a secret. He passed the living room where the lights were off, the kitchen where a half-drunk cup of coffee sat cooling on the marble counter, and came to a stop outside the door of his father's. Home office. The door was closed. It was never closed this late. His father, Sundar Pichai, always left it open after dinner, letting the warm light spill out like an invitation. Arav knew that when the door was open, it meant Sundar was doing something he loved. Reading, designing, listening to music from the old days in Chennai. But tonight the door was shut. The soft light did not leak out. Instead, the bottom edge of the door flickered with shadows. Moving like waves on a quiet lake, a ravine in dot, and then he heard it, a soft broken sound. A sound he had never heard. From his father before crying. At first, he froze. Sundar Pichai never cried. Not when Google was attacked in court. Not when the press tore his name apart. Not even when his own father passed away 3 years ago in India. He stood still, strong, with that patient smile that seemed to calm storms. But tonight, behind that door, the man the world admired was crying. Rav pushed the door gently. It creaked open. Just a little, and he saw it. His father was sitting at the desk, his back slightly hunched, his hand covering his mouth as if trying to catch the sound. Tears were running down his cheek, shining in the low glow of the lamp. On the desk, his phone screen was lit up with a message. Arav couldn't read the whole thing from where he stood, but he caught a name he didn't recognize, Ananya, and a line that made no sense to him. She said it was too late. Sundar didn't notice his son at the door. He was lost in the weight of the moment. Arav quietly stepped away, heart racing. He didn't understand what he had seen, but he understood pain. He understood silence. He returned to his room with 100 questions pulling at his chest. Who was Ananya? Why would someone say something was too late? And why, after so many years of watching his father carry the world with grace, was he finally breaking? Sundar stared at the message for the 12th time. It had arrived 5 minutes ago. It had taken 5 years to come. He leaned back, let the tears dry slowly on his skin, and remembered the last time he had seen her. Ananya. Not a business partner. Not an employee. Not someone the world would ever know about. She was the person he once thought he would marry. Before fame. Before Silicon Valley. Before the titles and the chaos and the spotlight. There was just her and him. In a library in Chennai, 2 college students who shared lunch and dreams and talked for hours about things that no longer seemed to matter in his current life. Poetry. Old Tamil films. What makes a person truly happy? They had promised to stay in touch, but promises, Sundar had learned, are often the first things we forget when success comes knocking. He had left for the US with a full heart and good intentions. He called her the first month, then once in the second. By the 4th month, their calls were shorter, less laughter, more silence. And one day, without either of them saying it aloud, they stopped. And now, after all these years, she had reached out, not with anger, not with blame, just with truth. She said it was too late. Sundar whispered the words to himself, like a prayer. What hurt wasn't that. She was right. What hurt was that he hadn't realized it mattered to him until this very moment. The next morning. Arav didn't ask anything. He watched his father drink coffee like usual. He watched him fix his tie. Before leaving for Google's campus. He watched him smile at his mother and kiss her. Forehead. Everything looked normal. But it wasn't. And Arav knew it. At school, his mind wandered. During math class, he thought about the message. During lunch, he looked up the name Ananya on his tablet, but all he found were a few common Facebook profiles. At home, he stared at the office door for hours, hoping it would open again. hoping something would explain what he had seen. 3 nights later, he heard voices from the office again. Not crying. Talking. But not with his mother. It was a call. RAV crept close, feeling the way guilt crawls into your chest when you do something you shouldn't. But curiosity was louder than guilt. I should have written years ago, his father said. His voice was soft, heavy. A woman's voice replied, low and calm, maybe older. Hard to tell. You did what you had to do, Sundar. We all did. Silence. Then his father spoke again. I just want to know, did I hurt you? The woman paused. You didn't, not directly, but you disappeared, and that's silence. That hurt more than anything. More silence. I kept thinking, the woman said, maybe you forgot me. Maybe I wasn't important enough. But now I know. You didn't forget, you just moved on. His father didn't speak. Not right away. Then he said, I didn't move on. I buried it. Arav's breath caught in his throat. It felt like watching a secret unfold. Not on television, not in a movie, but in real life, in his house. From his own father, for the first time, he saw Sundar Pichai not as the CEO. Not as the man who gave speeches to thousands. Not as the man who answered every question on TV with calm wisdom, but as someone who had once made a mistake and never healed from it. The next week, everything started to change. Sundar began waking up earlier. Not for work. For long walks, alone. He turned down 3 meetings he would never have missed before. He smiled more, but with a strange softness, like someone carrying an invisible weight. He looked at his wife, Arav's mother, with quiet thoughtfulness. And most of all, he started watching Arav closely during breakfast. During the evenings. Even when he thought Arav didn't notice, he seemed to be studying him. Or maybe trying to understand something through him. Then, one night, Sundar sat down beside Arav without saying anything. Just sat. They were both looking out the window. The sky was turning blue-gray. No stars. And then Sundar asked, have you ever felt like saying something, but you didn't know how? Arav looked up, startled. He thought about that night by the office door. About the message. About the tears. He nodded. Double quotes, yes. Sundar didn't ask what it was. He just said, me too. And in that moment, they both understood each other in a way they never had before. But neither of them knew what was coming next. Neither of them knew that a secret from Sundar's past was about to change their future. And it would begin with a single envelope. Delivered to their door. With no return address. And inside it, a photo. A photo of Sundar. Not alone, but standing next to a young girl. A girl who looked eerily familiar. Someone who looked like ARAV. Asterisk. The girl in the photograph envelope was plain. No markings, no stamp, no sender name. It was just there, waiting on the doorstep as if the wind had placed it there gently, like a forgotten truth delivered by accident. It was a Saturday morning. The sun had just started to climb above the trees, casting warm streaks of light across the quiet Palo Alto neighborhood. Ara found it first. He had stepped out to get the newspaper, something he did every weekend with quiet joy because it made him feel older, more responsible, like he was part of something grown-up. But this time, the newspaper was not alone. The envelope was resting just on top of it. No sound had announced its arrival. No footsteps. No doorbell. He stared at it. Something about it felt curious, but cautious. He carried it inside. His mother was still in the kitchen, humming to herself as she sliced fruit for breakfast. His father hadn't come down yet. It was still early. Arav thought about opening it, but something inside him hesitated. Instead, he placed the envelope on the dining table and went to wash his hands. He didn't expect much from it. Maybe it was a letter meant for someone else. Maybe it was nothing. But when Sundar came downstairs and his eyes fell on the envelope, everything changed. He stopped mid-step. His breath caught in his throat. And for a moment, he just stood there, silent, frozen, staring at that small, harmless-looking rectangle as though it carried the weight of 100 memories. Rav noticed the shift immediately. He knew his father well. Sundar's emotions usually moved like water beneath ice, slow, hidden, controlled. But now there was something raw, unguarded, rising to the surface. What is it? Arav softly. Sundar didn't answer. He walked to the table slowly, almost unwillingly, as if each step demanded a decision he wasn't ready to make. Picked up the envelope like it might burn him. His fingers shook slightly as he opened the flap and pulled out a single photograph. No note. Just the photo. For a moment, the world seemed to pause. Sundar stared at it. His hands tightened. And then, the silence broke. He exhaled, long, slow, and hollow, and sat down. Rav moved closer, peering over his shoulder. It was an old photo. Maybe taken 10, 12 years ago, faded at the edges. The lighting was soft and warm, the kind of color film gets under natural sunlight. Sundar was in it, younger, with less gray in his hair, wearing a simple button-up shirt. Beside him stood a woman, not Arav's mother. She was smiling, her arm lightly resting on Sundar's, and in front of her, holding her hand, was a little girl, maybe 3 years old, maybe 4. She had big, bright eyes and a shy smile. Rav stared at her. And his heart skipped a beat. She looked like him. Same eyes, same chin. Even her posture had a familiar slant. Who was that? He whispered. Sundar didn't answer right away. Instead, he placed the photograph face down on the table, then pressed both hands to his face, like he was trying to keep the truth from escaping his mouth. Arav had never seen his father like this, not even that night behind the closed office door. After what felt like hours, Sundar spoke. His voice was barely above a whisper. Her name is Dia. Arav blinked. Is she your daughter? Sundar nodded once. A single, heavy nod. Arav, single quotes, S-world, tilted. The room didn't spin, but it shrank. The walls felt closer. The air tighter. He looked at the photo again. At the little girl, at his father, at the woman who was not his mother. He didn't know what to feel. Anger? Confusion? Fear? Everything at once? Why didn't you ever tell me? His voice cracked. Sundar looked up, eyes red. Not from tears this time, but from something deeper. Guilt. Because I was afraid, he said. And with that one sentence, a story began to unfold. Not just to Arav, but to himself as well. A story Sundar had locked away for over a decade. A story about choices, mistakes, and consequences that ripple through time. 12 years ago, Sundar was in India for a tech summit. It was supposed to be a short trip, 2 keynote speeches, a board meeting, and a panel discussion in Mumbai. He didn't plan for anything else. But in Chennai, between meetings, he had reconnected with Ananya. She had reached out after seeing his name in a local newspaper. They met for coffee. 1 hour turned into 3. 3 hours into dinner, and dinner into a long, slow walk through the streets where they had once studied together, dreamed together, laughed under monsoon skies. He had been married then. Arav's mother was home in California with their son, just a baby at the time. But in Chennai, old emotions came back like fire catching dry wood. Her life had gone in a different direction. She had worked with nonprofits, lived simply, and avoided the chaos of corporate ambition. Sundar admired that about her. How untouched she was by the world he now inhabited. The night they said goodbye. They both cried. They didn't plan for what happened next. Weeks later, he received an email from her. She was pregnant. She didn't ask for anything. She simply told him. She said she didn't want to disrupt his life. That she would raise the child alone. That she wasn't angry. But that he had a right to know. He never replied, not because he didn't care, but because he was terrified. He told himself it was for the best. He convinced himself that silence would protect everyone. He was wrong. And now, 12 years later, silence had found its way back to him. Rav sat at the table, listening, breathing slowly, his fingers gripping the edges of his chair. He didn't speak. He couldn't. Everything inside him was shifting. This wasn't just a secret. It was a second life. A sister he had never met. A truth buried under years of silence. Does Mom know? He asked. Sundar closed his eyes. No. Arav stared at him. Are you going to tell her? His father looked lost. Like a boy, not a man. Like someone who had lived his whole life building ladders to success, only to realize the foundation beneath him was made of sand. I don't know, Sundar whispered. I don't know how. Arav stood up, the weight of everything pressing against his chest. He needed air, space, a pause from the storm. But before he could walk away, his father reached out, gently touching his wrist. I know I failed, Sundar said, voice cracking. But please don't let this make you think I don't love you. You're my son. Nothing changes that. Arav looked down at him. Maybe not, he said quietly. But it does change who I thought you were. That night, Arav couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the image of the little girl burning in his mind. Dia, his sister. He thought about what she might be like, what her voice sounded like. Did she like science? Did she play the piano like he did? Did she know about him? Then a terrifying question came to him. Did she even know Sundar was her father? And if she did, what had she been told all these years? Was she waiting for him? Was she angry? Was she hurt? The next morning, Arav made a decision. If his father wasn't going to find Dia, then he would, and he would start with the only clue. They had the envelope, because somewhere out there, a sister was living a life he knew nothing about, and it was time to change that asterisk, the search for Dia. The morning air was crisp. But inside the house, everything felt stale, like time had frozen just enough to hold its breath. Arav sat at the edge of his bed, the photograph clenched in both hands. It was wrinkled now, the corners bent, the edges soft from how many times he had studied it. The girl in the photo seemed to stare back at him, not with fear or joy, but with something softer, something quieter, something that asked, why didn't you come sooner? He couldn't answer her. Not yet. He tucked the photo into his backpack, zipped it closed, and pulled on a hoodie. He didn't tell his parents where he was going, not because he wanted to lie, but because he didn't know what to say. How could he explain the weight in his chest? How could he explain the ache of knowing someone out there shared his blood, his eyes, his smile, and yet she was a stranger? He didn't know where to start, but he knew who might help. His best friend. Rishi was the only person who might understand. He was the kind of friend who never asked why until after the question mattered. Arav trusted him with things he hadn't even said out loud yet. Rishi's house was 10 minutes away by bike. Arav pedaled fast, like he could outrun the confusion, clinging to his shoulders. When he reached the house, Rishi was sitting on the front steps, earbuds in, scrolling on his phone. He looked up, eyebrows raised. Dude, it's Saturday, he said. Why do you look like you just saw a ghost? Arav didn't speak. He pulled out the photo. Rishi took it. Studied it. Then looked up slowly. Who's the girl? Arav sat beside him. My sister. Rishi's eyes widened. Wait, what? Arav nodded, then told him everything. From the envelope to the phone call, he overheard. From the photograph to the confession, he told him about Dia, about Ananya, about the silence that had lived in their house for longer than anyone had. Realized RISA. I didn't interrupt. He just listened. When Arav finished. He felt like he had let go of something that had been sitting heavy on his chest for days. But what replaced it wasn't relief. It was urgency. So, Rishi said carefully, what do we do now? Arav reached into his pocket and pulled out the envelope again. There's no return address, no message, just this photo. Rishi turned it over. Paused. Then frowned. Dude, wait, look at this. Arav leaned in. Rishi pointed to the bottom right corner, a small, barely visible stamp. Not a postage stamp, a logo, printed faintly in gray ink. What is it? Arav asked. I tapped on it. That's a photo studio. It's in India. I've seen their watermark before. My cousin had her wedding photos taken there. They're based in Chennai. Arav's heart jumped. Chennai. His father's home. Dia single quotes as home. Everything suddenly felt closer. Real. Can we find them? He asked. Risa. I was already pulling out his phone. Give me 5 minutes. The studio's website was old. Not broken, but definitely not modern. It had grainy sample images, outdated fonts, and a phone number written in bold red at the top. There was no email, no online chat, no social media presence. Arav stared at the screen. Asterisk, we can call them, Rishi said. But it's late over there. You might have to wait till tonight. I can't, Arav replied. I need to do something now. Rishi nodded slowly. Then we leave a message. We ask about the photo. Maybe they'll remember who printed it. Arav grabbed his phone and dialed. His hands trembled as the line rang. 3 times. 4. Then voicemail. He cleared his throat, suddenly unsure what to say. Hi. This is Arav. Pichai. I'm trying to find someone. I think this photo was printed at your studio. It's really important. If you can call me back, please do. He left his number, hung up, and stared at the screen. Rishi put a hand on his shoulder. He did what you could. He said but Arav didn't feel peace. He felt the weight of time. Of lost years. Of chances that had vanished like breath in winter air. Back home, Sundar sat in his office. The photograph in his hand. He had taken it back after breakfast, saying nothing as he folded it into his journal. He hadn't told his wife. Not yet. He didn't know what words were there for this. What kind of sentence could explain a daughter hidden behind silence? He thought about about how she had once said, some silences are louder than screams. He now understood what she meant. When the email first arrived, years ago, he had stared at it for hours, reread it, memorized every line. He had wanted to reply, even written a draft, but fear crept in stronger than intention. And fear, he had learned, does not shout. It whispers, don't destroy what you have. Don't ruin your family. She said she didn't want anything. Leave it. But the truth was, he did want something. He wanted to meet Dia. He wanted to know the sound of her voice, the shape of her laughter. He wanted to ask her if she liked books, if she loved the rain like he did, if she ever wondered about the man who wasn't there. But he had waited too long. And now the past had arrived at his door, not to accuse, but to awaken. Asterisk. That night, Arav couldn't sleep. Again. He sat on the floor of his room, legs crossed, the photo spread out before him. He had stared at it so long it felt like a girl in it might blink. He wished she could talk. Just say one thing. Anything. Then his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He hesitated. Then answered. A soft voice came through. Hello? Is this Arav? His breath caught. Yes. I'm calling from my photo studio. Chennai. You left a message about a picture? Yes, he said quickly. A photo with a little girl and a woman. The voice paused. Yes, I remember. It was taken 11 years ago. And Anya brought it in herself. She didn't usually use studios, but this was a special photo. She wanted to send it to someone overseas. Arav's heart raced. Do you know where they are? Now. Can you tell me how to reach them? The woman hesitated. I can't give addresses. But I can tell you this. They live in Besant Nagar. The girl's name is Dia. Very bright. Comes to our neighborhood bookstore every week. Arav felt dizzy. It was real. Not a mystery. Not a dream. DIY, it was real. And for the first time, she wasn't just a photo. She was a person with a name, a home, a life, and he was going to find her. He ran to his father's office. Burst through the door. Sundar looked up. Startled. Rav held out the phone. I found her. Sundar stared. They live in Besant Nagar, Arav said, voice trembling. She goes to a bookstore. Her name is Dia. She's real, and she's waiting. The silence that followed was long. Then Sundar stood. Slowly. And whispered, "Then we go." Arav blinked. "What?" "We go to Chennai," Sundar said again, stronger this time. "We find her." No more silence. But just as the moment settled in, the door opened. And there stood Arav's mother. Her eyes confused, then narrowing. Then frightened. "Go where?" she asked softly. Sundar turned toward her. And for the first time in their marriage, he had no idea how to explain what came next. Asterisk, the break that doesn't shatter through when completely still. Not quiet, still. A kind of silence that felt like the air itself had thickened, holding everything in place. Arav's hand froze mid-gesture, the phone still glowing faintly in his fingers. Sundar slowly turned toward the doorway. His wife, Arav's mother, Mira, stood there, her eyes fixed on the two of them. But not with confusion anymore. It was something else now. Recognition. Somewhere deep inside her. She already knew. She didn't know the details. Not yet. But her heart had already begun to gather the pieces, sensing the shift in her husband's voice, the tremble in her son's hands. The way silence had wrapped around their home like fog for the past few days. She took a step forward. "Go where?" she asked again, softer this time. Sundar opened his mouth, then closed it. His throat tightened and his eyes flicked toward Arav, as if hoping his son could answer for him. But it had to be him. This was his silence. And now it had come to collect its cost. He moved slowly, motioning for her to sit down, but she stayed standing. He didn't try to force it. He simply pulled out the chair beside him and sat. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, but steady, not with confidence, but with resignation. "Mira," he said, "there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you years ago." Her face didn't change, but her arms folded tightly, the way they always did when she felt cold, not on the outside, but deep inside where emotion met instinct. Sundar looked down at his hands. They were trembling. "Before we got married," he said, "I reconnected with someone from my past, a woman I knew in Chennai. Her name is Ananya." He paused. Meera said nothing. "It happened during a business trip. I didn't plan for it. It was one night, one mistake. I didn't tell you because I was ashamed, because I didn't want to lose everything we had." Her breathing shifted, just slightly. "A few months after I came back, she emailed me. She was pregnant. She said she would raise the child alone, that she wasn't asking for anything. And I let her." Arav watched his mother closely. Every blink, every breath, every silent movement of her fingers gripping the edge of the doorframe. Sundar's voice cracked. "She had a daughter, Mira. Her name is Dia. She's 12 now." Mira closed her eyes. Just for a moment, not to hide, but to hold herself steady. 12, she said. 12 years. "Yes, and you never told me." Sundar nodded. His guilt had no shield. Left. She didn't scream. She didn't collapse. She didn't cry. Instead, she walked slowly into the room, sat down across from him, and looked at him like a stranger who had been wearing her husband's face. "Did you love her?" she asked. "No," Sundar said, too fast, then paused. "I mean, I cared for her. We had history, but it wasn't love. Not the kind we built. Not the life we have." Mira's eyes searched his face for the truth behind his words. For the crack that would confirm or deny everything she had ever believed about the man she married. Then she turned to Arav. "You?" Arav nodded slowly. "Only recently. And you didn't come to me?" I didn't know how." He whispered. "I didn't want to hurt you." She softened, but only for a breath. And then, with a voice steadier than any of them expected, she asked, "What happens now?" Sundar looked at her, uncertain. "I want to meet her," he said. "I want to fix what I broke." Mira stared at him, then at the photo still resting between the books on the desk. "Fix," she said quietly. "Some things don't fix, Sundar. They stretch. They scar. But they don't fix." She stood up again. If you go to her, she said slowly, go as her father. Go as the man who owes her a lifetime of answers. But don't go thinking you're still the same man here. And then she left the room. No tears. No anger. Just silence. The kind that doesn't explode, but echoes for a very long time. That night the house felt unfamiliar. Not broken, but cracked. As if someone had opened the windows too wide, and now every sound felt louder. Arav lay in bed with the photo resting on his chest. He stared at the ceiling, trying to make sense of everything. His family wasn't destroyed. Not completely. But something had shifted. He thought about his mother's voice. Don't go thinking you're still the same man here. He wasn't sure who she had meant it for. His father or herself. He didn't know if families could bend this far and still stay together. But he did know this. Daya didn't ask for any of this. She didn't choose silence. She didn't choose secrets. And she didn't deserve to be a shadow. He sat up. Then walked down the hallway toward his father's office. The door was open this time. Sundar sat in his chair, shoulders hunched, staring at the same photo they had all seen now too many times. The glow of his desk lamp spilled over the picture, like memory itself. Rav stepped in. We should go, he said. Sundar looked up. Are you sure? I need to meet her, Arav said. Not just because she's your daughter, but because she's my sister. And we already lost 12 years. Sundar nodded slowly. And the next morning, they booked 2 tickets to Chennai. India was not the country Arav remembered from old family vacations. It wasn't the noise or the smell of spices in the air that struck him this time. It was the feeling, the pull of something larger than a place. It felt like stepping into a story that had been waiting for them. Not to forgive, not to punish, but simply to be told. The streets of Chennai were alive with color and sound. Rickshaws darted between buses. The air was thick with humidity and the scent of frying oil from roadside vendors. But none of it distracted Arav from their destination. Besant. Energy AR. It was late afternoon when they arrived at the small bookstore. The woman behind the counter recognized the photo instantly. Yes, she said, smiling. Dai comes every Tuesday. She reads in the back corner for hours. She never buys anything, but we don't mind. Is she here now? Arav asked. The woman checked her watch. She was here. She left about 20 minutes ago. Arav's heart sank. Does she live nearby? Just a few blocks. Green gate, white balcony. 2 dogs always barking. They thanked her and left. As they turned down the street she described, Sundar slowed down. His breath came shorter. You okay? Arav asked. Sundar nodded. But it was a lie. He wasn't okay. He was terrified. Because every step he took brought him closer to the one thing he had spent 12 years running from. And he wasn't sure she would want to see him. They reached the house. Green gate. White balcony. 2 barking dogs behind a fence. Arav stepped forward. First. Then Sundar joined him. Together. They rang the bell. The sound echoed. A moment passed. Then the door opened. And there she stood. Dear Uye. Older than the girl in the photo. Taller now. With longer hair and cautious eyes. She looked first at Arav, confused. Then at Sundar. And her face changed. Not with anger. Not with joy. But something in between. Recognition. And then she spoke her first word to him. You're late. Asterisk. The time between us didn't say anything else after those 2 words. You're late. Not, who are you? Not, what do you want? Just that 3 syllables. No anger. No tears. No drama. But somehow those words weighed more than any scream could have. They carried 12 years of unanswered questions. 12 years of fatherless nights. 12 years of watching other kids walk hand in hand with the man she never got to call dad. Sundar stood frozen on the doorstep. He had imagined this moment 100 different ways on the long flight from California. He had tried to prepare. He had practiced in his head what he might say, something gentle, something true. But now, standing in front of her, his words vanished like chalk in the rain. Asterisk. Dia looked older than the girl in the photo, but younger than her eyes suggested. There was a depth to her expression, a carefulness. She had the same stillness that Sundar sometimes carried in interviews, the quiet kind, the kind that makes people lean in to listen. Rav was the one who finally broke the silence. Hi, he said softly, stepping forward. I'm Arav. I think I'm your brother. Dia blinked. Her gaze shifted to him. She didn't smile, but she didn't turn away either. I know who you are, she said. Her voice was calm, steady. Mom showed me your photo once. Said, you were smart, that you liked science and music, that you were happy. Arav's mouth opened slightly. She showed you? Yes, Dia said, looking back at Sundar. She never hid anything, not even you. Sundar closed his eyes for a second. That truth hit harder than he expected. Ananya had protected him, even when he hadn't. Protected her. She could have filled Dia's heart with bitterness, but instead she had filled it with honesty. And somehow that made his silence hurt more. Is your mom home? Sundar asked, finally finding his voice. No, Dia said. She's out working. She teaches part-time in a school nearby. There was another pause, a long one. The kind that stretches between people who are connected but unfamiliar. Then Dia stepped back from the doorway. You can come in, she said, if you want. Sundar didn't move. He looked at her as if he was afraid the moment might vanish if he reached for it. But Arav nudged him gently, and together they stepped inside. The house was small, simple, and warm. Sunlight spilled through thin white curtains, pooling across the tiled floor. There was a bookshelf lined with worn novels, a low table cluttered with pencils and papers, and a photo of Dia and her mother framed near the television. A soft breeze moved through the open windows, carrying the scent of jasmine from a garden. Just outside. You can sit, Dia said, gesturing toward the couch. Sundar lowered himself into the seat slowly, as if unsure he had the right to touch anything. Arav sat beside him, his eyes scanning the room for pieces of the sister he barely knew. Dia sat across from them on a floor cushion, legs folded neatly. Back straight, quiet. I didn't expect this, she said, but I guess I should have. We got your photo, Arav said, pulling it gently from his bag. He placed it on the table between them. No return address. No, just this. Dia didn't react then. After a moment, she said, I sent it. Sundar looked up sharply. You did? Yes. Why now? He asked. After all this time? Dia shrugged lightly, but her eyes flicked downward. Because I wanted to see what kind of man you'd become. Not the one in the articles. Not the one on stage. The real one. The man who left and the man who stayed away? Sundar winced, but he didn't run from her words. I don't have a defense, he said. I only have regret. Dia nodded slowly, as if she had expected that answer. I used to imagine meeting you, she said. I had different versions. In one, you showed up on my birthday. In another, you found me at school. But this version, this one feels like the only one that could be true. Quiet, awkward, a little sad. I'm sorry, Sundar whispered. For everything. Dia looked at him for a long time. Her expression unreadable. Sorry doesn't change the years, she said. I know. But maybe it can change the next ones. Those words hit him like a thread of light through a dark tunnel. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But the beginning of something that might become it. Avi leaned forward. Do you want to hang out sometime? He asked, voice nervous. Maybe talk more? Or, I don't know, show me your favorite bookstore. Dia gave him the faintest smile. Not wide, but real. Maybe. She said and for the first time, something softened in the room. YA returned home an hour later. The sun was setting behind her, casting long shadows through the gate as she stepped into the house and froze. She saw them. Sundar. And Dia sitting with him. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Ananya set her bag down gently, wiped her hands on her kurta, and walked in with the grace of someone who had seen many storms and survived them all. She looked at Sundar first. Then at her daughter. Then at Arav. You came? She said softly. Sundar stood up. I had to. Ananya looked at him, not with anger, but with caution, as if she were holding a glass heart between her fingers and wasn't sure if he deserved to touch it. You're not too late, she said, but you're not early either. You'll have to earn your way into her life, slowly, quietly. I don't expect anything else, he said. They sat down again. The room felt different now, fuller, heavier, but somehow more honest. N-N-N-N-Y poured tea for everyone, her hands steady. She didn't ask for explanations. She didn't retell the past. She simply moved forward, one gesture at a time. And as they sat there, sipping tea in the fading light, Sundar realized something strange. He didn't feel like the CEO of a global empire. He didn't feel like the speaker, the innovator, the man behind 1,000 headlines. He felt like a father, a man trying to rebuild a bridge he should never have let collapse. And for the first time in years, he let himself be that man, nothing more, nothing less, outside. The sky turned from gold to violet, and Dia looked at the man who had once chosen silence. Then slowly, not loudly, not with ceremony, she asked the one question that had lived inside her since she was old enough to wonder, why didn't you come for me? And the room went quiet again, not with fear, but with waiting. And in that silence, Sundar searched for the truth, not the convenient truth, not the public truth, but the one she deserved to hear. Asterisk, the truth between heart's question lingered in the air, like the final note of a song. Not harsh, not accusatory, just raw and quiet and impossibly heavy. Why didn't you come for me? Dia didn't raise her voice. She didn't flinch when she asked. And maybe that made it even harder to bear. It wasn't a cry for attention. It was a wound seeking light. And Sundar felt it in his bones, the kind of hurt that doesn't scream because it's grown used to silence. For a long time, he said nothing, his fingers wrapped around the rim of the teacup. Over ing. Then slowly, he set it down, the soft click of ceramic against wood, filling the stillness in the room. The ceiling fan hummed gently above them, and the sound of a motorbike buzzed faintly outside the window. But inside, time had gone still again. I wish I had a better answer, Sundar said, his voice barely above a whisper. Something clear. Something that would make you feel better. But the truth is, I was afraid. Dia didn't blink. She listened. I was afraid of ruining the life I had, he continued. I told myself it was too complicated, that I could love you from a distance, that maybe it was better that way. And those were lies. Comforting lies. Because the real truth, the truth I've been running from, is that I didn't have the courage. He looked her in the eyes then, steady, not flinching. And I don't deserve your forgiveness. She watched him, still and unreadable. Ananya sat beside her daughter, her hand lightly resting on Dia's knee, not guiding, not interfering, just there. A quiet presence like the sun warming the earth without asking for thanks. I spent years climbing mountains that didn't matter, Sundar said. And while I was chasing recognition, I missed the one thing I should have been chasing instead, you. His voice broke slightly. I can't undo the past, but I can be here now. Not as a perfect man, not even as someone you need to love back, but as someone who finally understands the damage his silence caused. And I'm here because I want to be different. Dia's eyes softened, not completely, but enough that something in her posture shifted. She leaned back, her shoulders relaxing just a little, the wall around her not falling, but no longer holding its full weight. Arav spoke next. I didn't know about you, he said quietly. But now that I do, I can't imagine pretending you don't exist. I don't want that. You're part of me too. She turned to him. The corners of her lips twitched upward, just slightly. We barely know each other, she said. Then let's fix that, he replied. The moment didn't end in tears or hugs. It didn't need to. Something deeper had happened, the kind of shift that starts in the unseen places. The quiet joining of broken lines. They stayed a while longer that evening. Sundar and Arav told her about their life in California. Sundar showed her pictures on his phone, photos of Arav as a baby, his school projects, The time they built a robot together in their garage? Dia didn't say much, but she listened. She leaned closer when Arav laughed at one of his own embarrassing stories. Her gaze softened when Sundar showed her an old video of him playing piano, stumbling through the melody. Both of them giggling at the memory dot, she asked only one question. Do you think Mom could visit someday? Sundar paused and smiled gently. I'd like that very much. Asterisk before they left, Ananya walked them to the door. The jasmine air was thicker now, the scent stronger in the dusk. The neighborhood lights blinked on, one by one, like quiet guardians. She's strong, Ananya said, once they were outside. Not because of me, because of who she is. I see that, Sundar said, and then Wai looked at him for a long moment. Not with blame, not even with sorrow. Just acceptance. The kind that only people who've been deeply wounded can give. The kind that costs something. Don't disappear again, she said softly. Never, he promised. Asterisk, and she nodded. Not because she believed him yet, but because she believed he meant it. Back in Palo Alto, the air felt different. Asterisk.